We are now in the bar of the Bel Air Hotel, where everything is quiet, and we get a chance to talk to Mr. Tony Bennett, one of the great vocalists at this 25th edition of the North Sea. Mr. Bennett, as a carrier of a great tradition, the great tradition of the crooners, I would like to have to take the opportunity to ask you: is it possible to define the term crooner?
Yeah, it's the art of intimate singing. It was invented by two people, Gene Austin, who made a record called My Blue Heaven, and made everybody run to a record shop. He was the first guy who made everybody who said, I want to buy that record. I want to buy a phonograph player. He was the first one. He was forgotten, but he shouldn't have been, because he really was the first one that made a very big sensation. He made everybody open up record shops. He was the inventor of it, really, the reason for it. He and Enrico Caruso, RCA Victor. But then Bing Crosby was the first singer who created the art of intimate singing using a microphone. You know, before that, all the entertainers and opera singers, you know, sang without a microphone. And he was the first one to actually get a microphone and kind of whisper intimately into the microphone. And he hypnotized the whole world. Even in Germany, during the war, they called him Der Bingle. And he was just international. He won 2 Academy Awards and really deserved each one. Big, like one movie called Country Girl, the other one Going My Way. And he taught us all how to make a living. Bing Crosby really showed us how to do it.
But still, in the world, there's a lot of singers, there's a lot of microphones, but not as many crooners as the adding up of those two figures. So there must be something extra to it.
Well, it was a different era. That was an era where everybody was infatuated with radio, and radio was very, very big. You know, I think since the advent of television, it's not how you sound a lot, but how you look also. So a lot of pretty people just become very big with terrible voices, but they look beautiful. So we forgive them.
Yeah.
But, you know, there was Louis Armstrong, who was Bing Crosby's favorite inspiration. He practically invented jazz, and Bing loved him. They did duets together and made movies together. And Louis was always a hit. A lot of people don't realize that he was really a great actor, but, you know, people tend to categorize people, and they figure, well, he's a jazz musician. But he saved almost every movie he was ever in, including Barbra Streisand's Hello, Dolly.
Yeah.
The picture wasn't working until he hit the screen and sang Hello, Dolly, and then the whole picture was lifted up. Yeah. And he was that way with every film, even the Crosby movies. People, oh, there's Louis Armstrong. You know, he did a little cameo, but it really worked.
Yeah.
And he's a big, big influence on all the crooners. If you didn't phrase his way, even Billie Holiday, Frank Sinatra, and Nat King Cole, they all kind of imitated Louis. He's the master.
In a period where labeling, useless as it may be in art, but popular as it is, with that labeling going on, could you say that the art form that you practice is some sort of a bridge between what people call the entertainment world and the jazz world?
I see all of the performers as entertainers. I mean, you know, the ones I've seen, like Fred Astaire, who introduced the best songs, you know, he was an entertainer. Duke Ellington was an entertainer. Count Basie was an entertainer. Frank Sinatra, you know, hypnotized everybody when they saw him in person. They loved him. Nat King Cole was beautiful on stage. So each one, Billie Holiday, they all loved performing. They loved entertaining people. They didn't do it just for themselves. Of course, they enjoyed their life because they liked doing what they were doing. Yeah. But they all wanted to, you know, knock people out of their seats. They all wanted to, you know, just really entertain people, make them feel great.
Well, one of the reasons I ask is that, for instance, in Holland,
yes,
there's a lot of conservatories where you have so-called light music departments. And you see that there's a great emphasis on technique, craftsmanship, virtuosity, playing hard bop, bebop, but there's actually no training in how to present yourself on a stage, for instance. Do you think that the entertainment bit is sometimes too much ignored?
Well, funny enough that you mentioned that. It takes about 10 years to learn how to start becoming a consummate performer. And the world today has changed so much that the record companies and all the producers, you know, they just want obsolescent music. They don't want anything to last, so they'll make someone as big and promise them they'll be as big as the Beatles or you know, or Michael Jackson or Paul McCartney, you know, but then they take 75% from the young artists. They make them go up and then crash them right down to the ground. And they go to the next one. It's quite cruel. I don't like what they do with the young people. Certain ones make it, like Madonna and Sting and, you know, the Billy Joel. Certain people have standard acts. But the majority really don't have a long life. But funny that you mentioned that question. It's interesting because I'm starting a school that the Board of Education in the United States has agreed to finance, and it's called the Frank Sinatra School of the Arts. And we're going to have the young people not only study from books, like you mentioned, but also go into the field and go to sing for blind people and go to charity concerts in schools and church basements and just get involved with performing, getting used to performing in front of people, getting them so that they're not shocked when they go out of school and say, my God, I have to walk on the stage. And instead of feeling frightened, they'll be used to performing before they graduate to high school. So that's the ambition of the school. And we have Harry Belafonte and Eli Wallach and Ann Jackson, beautiful actors and actors, the husband and wife actors and actors, and they're going to advise the students as to what to do. We're going to teach them the form and the technique, but they're also going to show them that they should really perform, because that's the only way they're going to survive in the long run. You know, even someone like Miles Davis, who kind of played for himself, but he was really performing. You know, he always performed. I mean, you know, you had to be different if you perform, and he was smart enough to turn his back to the audience. Everybody else is out in front, you know, so he did something a little different. Everybody said, look at that, he turns his back to the audience. It's different, so it's a performance.
It's an interesting initiative that we'll follow and see if we can fill that gap here too in that way.
That would be nice, yeah.
A good example for us.
Well, you know, you had a great friend of mine who, it's so sad that Tones Hermans was a wonderful performer, and he was a great friend of mine, and I was sorry that he died, you know. It feels different coming back here because I've had many beautiful days with him. He was a wonderful painter, plus a great, great artiste.
Yeah. I want to go... I almost jumped to my third question because you mentioned Toon Hermans, but I'll just do my second first. You recently put out an Ellington CD, Duke Ellington CD, with the among orchestra pieces also with the same quartet, the Ralph Sharon quartet that you perform with here. Obviously, you will be doing some of that stuff tonight.
Oh yes,
right?
definitely, yeah.
You have worked with Duke Ellington, you were friends, you painted him. How did that situation, that friendship, that intimacy that you had with him play a role in the recording of this CD and in the performances that you do with the quartet?
Well, it's the most natural I feel, you know. I like my signature song is I Left My Heart in San Francisco. And everybody says, don't you ever get tired of singing that? Because I do it all over the world. I get commissioned to sing it. It's made me a world citizen. I happen to love the song. But one song I've sung many more times is a song called Don't Get Around Much Anymore by Duke Ellington. And I started when I was, working as a waiter, a singing waiter. When I first started at 17 years old, I was working tables in restaurants and taking requests and singing. And I would sing that song every single night. Don't get around much anymore. And all the musicians I've ever met of any worth, they all do Duke Ellington. more so than the Beatles. As much as the Beatles are advertised and promoted and everything, and everybody talks out of millions of records that they sold. But everywhere I go in the world, I hear Duke Ellington. If I go into a restaurant or a bistro or a hotel lobby where there's a piano player or a trio or, live music anywhere, whether it's Belgium or Malaysia or New Zealand, wherever it is, I always hear someone playing Duke Ellington.
But it must be, in your case, it must be different for somebody because it's a very contemporary CD in its arrangements, in its whole treatment of the recording. It must be different for someone who has known him, who has worked with him to do it, than for somebody for who it is a tradition that is one step away from him.
Well, it was very inspiring. He changed my life in many ways, personal situations that were very warm and beautiful. He was a great, great man, and he's really practically saved my life because at one time I was really at the lowest ebb of my life. I had a very tragic situation going on, and it was Christmas Eve, and it's the loneliest I ever felt in the world. And he and Louis Bellson, the great drummer, they sent a whole chorus up to my hotel room, and they all were singing "On a Clear Day You Could See Forever." And that's the kind of man Duke was. He was a humanist and an optimist and very positive. He's a fascinating man, the great indignity of blacks, the way they were treated so many times. They weren't allowed to go in certain hotels, white hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he had an answer for everything. He would say, well, how does the President of the United States, this was in the 30s, 1930, he'd say, how does the President travel? He said, well, he travels in a train, he has a caboose, and then his staff is in the other railroad cars. He said, well, let's do that. And he went in a train, so he didn't have to go through the indignity of being turned away from a hotel. And he'd go to a town and do a concert, get back on the train, and go to the next town. So he had a way of getting, he was very positive about things. He was very wonderful. I mean, a great philosopher, really.
Don't get around much anymore.
Mm-hmm.
A combinations of brilliance and a form of simplicity.
Yes.
What does make a great melody? What is for you the definition of a great melody?
Well, when it hits you emotionally, I had Ruby Braff, the great cornet player. He said it best of all. He said, melody is God. And you can't. It doesn't sound right if you don't have a melody. No matter. I mean, there are a lot of new avant-garde composers that are in the abstract, and that's all very interesting. And they do some phenomenal modes of music and everything, pretty good. But there's nothing like Louis Armstrong. When you mentioned the word simplicity, he did everything simple, but it was better than anything that anybody ever did in jazz. To this day, anything that's ever been invented, which is whatever pop category today, whether it's grunge or hip hop or rap, whatever it is, Louis invented all that. He invented everything. He was a genius. But he did it simple, like you mentioned. Duke was simple also, but very incongruous, very different. Even though it was melodic, didn't sound like anybody else's music. It sounded like Duke Ellington. He was a creative artist, genius.
The melody and the harmony is there, then you come in and you perform it, you bring it to the ears, you bring it to the emotions of the people. I want to go to my last subject about that. I mentioned you made a beautiful painting of Ellington. There's also on the new CD a painting of Ellington by you. Mr. Bennett, the performing artist, Mr. Benedetto, the painter.
Right.
Both of those gentlemen work with color.
Yes.
Will it be a musical color or a visual color? Is there for you somewhere a link between those two identities with the word color? Because is there a link for you?
It's a very good question, because there's a lot of critics that say they're completely different. But I happen to think that there is a difference. There is a similarity. I'm sorry. There's a similarity. I mean, you have basic ingredients for any of the crafts, whatever craft it is. You have line, form, color, value, balance. All of these rules. It's the form. And that pertains to cooking, or playing tennis, or any craft or high-level art, whether it's oil painting or watercolor, or singing or dancing, whatever the creative arts are, any of the cultures, those are the basic rules, and they pertain to. I mean, Leonardo da Vinci is the tip-off to that you could do many things, because if you realize that it's all these 4 or 5 elements that create this simplicity and make it all work, the composition, balance, learning what to leave out, keep it simple. That's all that pertains to cooking. It pertains to every craft, every form of creative process. It's a creative process. So I think it's all one thing.
If you have the combination of melody with certain harmonies and you are performing them, do you actually think of colors?
Absolutely, yeah. Nuance. See this sounds like a critique. I think it is actually. In rock and roll, it starts loud, and the middle's loud, and it ends loud. It's just loud, right from. There's no balance. It's not like Count Basie, where it starts soft, and just as it just feels very nice. All of a sudden, boom, a big blast of the chorus comes in. Everybody jumps up. Whoop! What happened? And then soft again. It's nuance. It's values, and they're all balanced. They're all balanced. They had at a certain correct timing, so that it's just the right time. So Count Basie used to just right in the middle of one. He never had a microphone on his piano, but he would just hit one note on the piano just at the right time. It was louder than the whole brass section, because it was just the right moment of silence. Just the band would hit a big blasting note, and there would be this silence. Obviously, ding, ba-do-da-do-do-do. Just right away. Wow, what's that?
I want to close the circle of this brief conversation. We started with crooners. I would like to end with them. The art of intimate singing. You as a icon of a tradition, and somebody who is now also stepping into the teaching with your new initiative that you just mentioned. What is your prognosis for the art form as it is in the future?
It's going to last forever, because improvisation has happened many years ago by great master composers, classical composers. I mean, they would play just a few bars, and they would take an oboe or another English horn or whatever, and they would say, just play whatever you feel here. And they would do it just for a bar or so. And it was invented in New Orleans, where they elongated the improvisation, and they just kept playing right straight through, maybe 2 or 3 choruses of the 32 bars that they were basing it on. Well, what happened was it invented the only thing in the United States that's really our tradition. We've made a lot of money. We've been very successful. But what's our tradition? What are we leaving to the rest of the world? Like the Italians left music and art, and the French and the Dutch and the Holland and everything. They've great painters, and the British theater. Art form is the entertainment world. We have a style. It's American. It's completely different because it's not one philosophy. It's many different philosophies. I happen to like it. It's a great palette to work with. Every different nationality has contributed to it, and there's plenty to work with. And it's really a great art form. I just love it because you really meet individuals that are unbelievable. I mean, they're playing for the moment. It's not premeditated. It's not planned. They just see what the atmosphere is the moment, and then, boom, it comes out. And they don't know what. It's just their life and everything they feel at the moment. And it's terribly exciting. I think it's one of the great forms of music that's ever been invented, because it just comes out of the spirit of the human being, the individual, or the group of individuals that are harmonizing together. But it happens, they do it spontaneously. It's not premeditated. And it's terribly exciting music. To me, it's the best entertaining music. It's alive. Every time I hear it, you just say yes. It's just like I just heard a quote by Ira Gershwin. He says, "I never knew my songs were that good until I heard Ella Fitzgerald sing them." You know, that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It's that one concept of that individual that hears it a certain way. And it's just completely spontaneous. They just create right on the spot. It's wonderful.
Mr. Benedetto, grazie. Mr. Bennett, thank you.
Thank you, Cole. Right.